There we go. Okay. I don't know about you, but if I'm driving and I see a fish emblem or fish bumper sticker on the car, instinctively I expect better, more courteous driving. I expect no lane jumping. I expect respect for the speed limit. And I expect that if I need to kind of get into the other lane and squeeze in between cars, somebody with the fish emblem will let me in. That's what I expect. Not always what I get, but we have that expectation.
I have to say real quick, Gail's got the pro-life, yellow family license plate. When I'm in her car, I have to get that license plate's on there. There's been all kinds of people that pulled up next to me and shocked to see it, expect a nice lady driving the car, and then when I'm doing those discourteous things,
that's right.
Like, oh, it's who's that?
Throws them off.
Tough guy, a little family truckster.
White people have an interesting attitude, what they expect from Christians. You would think that they would expect people who are taught how to be generous and people who've experienced the generosity of God to be generous tippers. We are not known as being generous tippers. And it doesn't help our cause in that regard when some people write notes or say to white people, why should I tip you 15 to 20% when I only give God 10%?
Oh.
To which I would ask, you only give God 10%? There are, of course, professional baseball players who are known to be Christian ball players. Andy Pettitte and Mariano Rivera of the Yankees, Albert Pujols of the Cardinals, Josh Hamilton of the Angels, Justin Masterson of the Cleveland Indians, even closer to where we are, Ben Zobrist of the Rays, and his wife is a Christian singer. I expect from Christian athletes no foul language, no bad behavior, no spitting on umpires. That's what I expect. A couple weeks ago, Fran and I went to the City of Palm Stadium. Southeastern was there playing in a tournament game against Ave Maria's baseball team. So here you have an Assemblies of God Christian school playing baseball against a Catholic Christian school. And I just instinctively, automatically expect better behavior, better attitudes, win or lose. I don't expect foul language, at least from the players and coaches. As I looked around and listened in the stands, my expectations for the fans lowered a great deal. But what occurred to me as I was thinking about expectations is ultimately, bottom line, the reason why people leave marriages. Unmet expectations. The reason why people leave their jobs, their expectations weren't met. The reasons people quit schools, quit college, drop out, their expectations. Think about it with marriage. He, she, it didn't meet my expectations. And even though it may not be said that way, it may be worded differently, isn't that ultimately why people leave a marriage? They didn't meet my expectations. By the way, I get interesting looks from married people when I suggest to them, well, maybe you need to lower your expectations for him or her or for marriage. And they're horrified that that sounds like such a compromise. I can't lower my expectations. Why do people become dissatisfied followers of Jesus? He didn't meet my expectations. Why do some people leave the faith or leave a church? It doesn't meet my expectations anymore. Even life, depression has this element in it that life, some area of life, some arena of life doesn't meet my expectations and I'm depressed about it. One of the dilemmas certainly within the church is this is what happens when our Christian experience is oversold, underdelivered. We create these unreasonable, unrealistic expectations of what it's like to be a follower of Jesus. It's going to be happy, happy, joy, joy, 24/7, 365. And then when real life hits, so I've put together some little diagrams, little graphics to show something about it. Expectation, high. The reality, low. The gap between high expectation, low reality is the disappointment gap. The greater the gap between expectation and reality, the greater the disappointment. If expectation is low and reality is low, the level of disappointment is lower. Do you follow? This is very basic. I think it makes sense. But if the reality is equal to or exceeds the expectation, so you have the expectation and the reality on pretty much the same level, then what you have is satisfaction. Another word for disappointment could be dissatisfaction. And I think there are two different dimensions to expectation. That is, expectation that is based on hope leads to disappointment, kind of pure disappointment. We hope for a good marriage. We hope for a good job. We hope for a good relationship with our church and friends and with Jesus. We hope. And when we're disappointed, when the reality doesn't meet the expectation, then we experience disappointment. But there's another feeling that comes through disappointment. And I think it contaminates disappointment. That is, when my expectations are based on feelings of entitlement or deserving, then instead of or in addition to disappointment, I also feel anger and resentment. If you think that you deserve a happy marriage or a great job, but you choose an immature or selfish partner, or a partner who drinks too much, it doesn't matter what you deserve, it matters what you chose. It matters who you chose. You may deserve a great, satisfying, well-paying career. But if you dropped out of college before completing your degree studies in Oriental art history, your choice will prevent you from getting what you think you deserve. in that little vignette of Jesus' teaching we read a little while ago, Jesus was doing something very interesting and very profound. He's describing the new way rather than the old way. The old way was the way of the Mosaic law. The new way was the way of the kingdom of God. And he's saying the new way is higher than the old way. But remember, the old way was preparation for the new way. In Galatians chapter 3, verses 23 through 25, the Apostle Paul wrote this: "Before this faith came, we were held prisoners by the law, locked up until faith should be revealed. So the law was put in charge to lead us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. Now that faith has come, we are no longer under the supervision of the law." He talked about the law being a schoolmaster that was purposed to bring us to faith, to bring us to Christ. But we read passages like we read in Matthew chapter 5, and we can't help but wonder, well, what does God expect from us? You know, we have the commandments, and we couldn't live up to the commandments. So now God raises the level of expectation for us. Now what are we going to do? But be attentive to Exodus chapter 20 for a moment. Exodus chapter 20 was the revelation of the law through Moses, the tablets. Do not, do not, do not, do not. And we take that as our moral authority, don't we? You know, I hear people all the time, I want to obey the Ten Commandments, I try to obey the Ten Commandments, I fail to obey the Ten Commandments. But refer back to the Ten Commandments as the standard for their behavior. Exodus 20:24. A little verse that's easy to miss. Make an altar. Remember, Moses is bringing the law, but now he tells the people, God tells the people through Moses, make an altar of earth for me, and sacrifice on it burnt offerings and your fellowship offerings, your sheep and your goats and your cattle. Question: if the commands could be met, if the commands could be obeyed, what is the point of an altar and sacrifices? The commands were never meant to be obeyed. The commands were meant to lead us to the altar, to lead us to the sacrifice, because we can't fulfill the commands. And then later on in Exodus, you see God not only giving instruction to build an altar, but he said, build a tabernacle. And a tabernacle was a place where the presence of God was located, what's called the Shekinah glory. But in order to make contact with God, what did you need to do? You needed to bring an offering to cleanse from sin. And remember, I've been encouraging you lately, I've been encouraging you to think paradoxically, to think holistically, not dualistically. Dualistic is either or. Well, is it this or is it this? Holistically is yes, it's this and this. That is, by raising the standard, God was making it more certain that we couldn't meet the standard, so that we would have to depend on God's grace rather than our self-effort or religious achievement. Do you follow? So the law was heavy enough and strong enough and stringent enough But some people got the wrong idea, and they think, well, I've got to try to obey the law. I've got to obey the law. The only way I'm going to be made righteous before God is by obeying the law. God, wait, babe, you got to. That's not why I gave you the law. I gave you the law to help you to realize that you break the law. How are you going to know you're going in the wrong direction if you don't know what the right direction is? In Romans 3:23, where it says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God," that's not a condemnation. That's a statement of fact. You see, God doesn't just expect us to fail to meet the commands. He knows we are going to fail to meet the commands. And instead of being disappointed in us, or dissatisfied in us, or angry with us, or resentful of us, He intervenes for us. But still, most people, even many Christians, are convinced that righteousness is about doing what's right. Obedience equals knowing what's right and doing what's right. Wait a minute. Jesus' life and ministry was not about doing what was considered right by law or by tradition. It wasn't right for him to heal on the Sabbath. It wasn't right not to stone a woman caught in adultery. It wasn't right for him to let her off the hook, to let her go, and tell her, don't do it again. It wasn't right for him to talk religion with a Samaritan woman. It wasn't right for him to allow young men to knock a hole through the roof of the house to lower their friend down where Jesus could minister to him. But it wasn't right for Jesus to heal the young man and to forgive him. Jesus did what he did because the law of love trumps the law of Moses. And in fact, sometimes doing the right thing is doing exactly the wrong thing if it's not doing the loving thing. But a lot of us get confused, get frustrated, get anxious, because we feel, without knowing the right thing, and knowing that the right thing gives us comfort and predictability, and it gives us limits. We know what the right thing is, we know what the wrong thing is, and we want to do the right thing. We don't want to do the wrong thing. Paul in Romans 7 expressed the difficulty there. We want to find certainty and security that we're doing what's right. But what Jesus wants us to do, the new way, is to trust the unpredictability of the Spirit, to trust the mystery of grace, to trust the wonder of love. Do you hear the tension here? I want to know what's the right thing to do here in this situation. Jesus wants me to know the loving thing to do in this situation. See, I don't need God to be moral. Jesus didn't have to die so that I could do the right thing. But I do need God to forgive me for failing to meet the demands and the commands of the law. I do need Jesus to help me know and to do the loving thing. I need Jesus, not the law. I need Jesus to live. The letter killeth. The Spirit gives life. Let's pray. Lord, as happened so many times, I don't know all the dimensions